Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto Have the Power to Heal and Destroy. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 20. Take Flight. Things were starting to look up for the Naruto these last couple of days. Sure, his arms were still covered by fresh bandages, but he could now maintain a Rasengan for well over 3 minutes before the spherical chakra mass would blow up on his face, and, for most battle situations, 3 minutes should be enough to impale the jutsu into the opponent's gut. That, plus the fact that his wallet was becoming uncomfortably heavy due to his casino winnings, made up for a fruitful week for the young Jinchuriki. If only the mission itself could go as smoothly. Most of the day had already gone by and the Sharingan user was still following the Sannin through crowded streets. Curses and grunts of frustration could occasionally be heard from Jiraiya's general direction as the white-haired man marked everything his from casinos to lottery stands within 2 days of travel. She has to be in one of these. He spoke what had already become his mantra for the last couple of days. This is taking us nowhere, Naruto commented. I thought you had some idea about where this Tsunade is, but we've been at this for over a month now and there is no trace of her, the blonde criticized. I sure hope that they never send you to look for me if I go missing during a mission, he commented in a low voice, but still loud enough to make sure the older shinobi heard it. The legendary pervert gritted his. Perhaps I should have let your father drown that one time when we went to wave while he was still a genin, he shot back. Shrugging the Sannin's comment off, the spiky-haired boy simply brought his hands to the back of his head and silently continued to follow the senior nin. With frustration having gotten the best of him, Jiraiya could no longer discern any of the illustration on his map. Letting out a roar in irritation at the offending piece of paper, the Sannin crumbled the map and shoved into one of his pockets. Okay, hotshot! The white-haired man called out as he turned around to look at the young Sharingan user. Since according to you, I have no idea about what I'm doing, why don't you pick our next destination? He offered as he folded his arms and continued to regard the genin. Okay, if you have so much doubt in yourself, then I guess I'll do it, Naruto answered with a shrug of his shoulder, earning a glare from the white-haired man. I say we go to that place next, the Jinchuriki stated as extended his right and pointed at his intended destination. Jiraiya's eyes followed the direction indicated by the blonde. There? He asked, looking at the boy with confused eyes. But that's only a restaurant, the legendary shinobi pointed out. The spiky-haired genin nodded. Yeah, get the hint, Naruto commented as he proceeded to fold his arms as well. We haven't eaten anything since breakfast. Yesterday, the Jinchuriki reminded as he started to walk towards the establishment. Grunting in defeat and sighing, the Sannin started after the young shinobi. Very well, we'll take a break for food. But you're paying, he exclaimed. Naruto ignored Jiraiya's declaration. The blonde's eyes were solely on the restaurant's door while his mind was preoccupied hoping that they got ramen in the establishment. As he followed the Sharingan user through the door, Jiraiya's trained eyes immediately scanned the room. The white-haired man's field of vision was moving from one side of the restaurant to the other when suddenly, something caught his attention. Oh, there is no way the kid is that lucky, he exclaimed in a mix of surprise and frustration. I cannot believe you tracked me down. Naruto was currently sitting with Jiraiya in front of a grouchy, well-endowed, blonde woman, her nervous, black-haired assistant, and a pig wearing a red jacket. Needless to say, Naruto was a little skeptical about the famed Tsunade, but the genin decided to leave the situation for the adults to deal with for now, because there a bowl of ramen right before him meriting all of the spiky-haired boy's attention. Jiraiya laughed at the angry face his old teammate was making. And I can't believe that you lost so much in the casinos that you have to dine in a roadside restaurant instead of those fancy ones you enjoy so much, the white-haired man teased. Looking from her teacher to male Sannin and to young boy preoccupied with his food, Shizen sighed. It had been a long and hard day for her, and it showed no signs of letting up anytime soon. Still been unable to mask her anger, Tsunade addressed the legendary pervert again. So are you going to tell me the reason why you came looking for me? The healer questioned. Because I am damn well sure that this is no a social visit. The goofy grin immediately disappeared from Jiraiya's face as he regarded the female blonde with a serious look. I like to think that you are not so detached with your past that you have no idea of what has been happening in your own village, the white-haired nin stated. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. First of all, she began, I have left everything from the past where it belongs. The healer clarified as she looked at her former teammate as if he had just wronged her somehow. That being said, I did hear word that you were attacked by hidden sand, the kunoichi confessed, folding his arms and leaned back against his seat as he matched the blonde woman's glare. And did you hear that Sarutobi-sensei was killed during the attack? A mild look of surprise appeared in the female Sanin's face but was shrugged off the next instant. So, the old man is finally dead, she said with a bored look. It took him long enough to roll over and die, she added, her voice void of any sadness, compassion, or melancholy. Next to the legendary healer, Shizen realized that the young spiky-haired boy had suddenly stopped eating. Unlike his teammate, Jiraiya's voice was tainted by a hint of anger. Anyways, the council is asking for your return to the village to receive the position of Godame Hokage. There was a general surprised shock from the rest of the dinner party. What? Naruto exclaimed as he looked at the white-haired man for an explanation. Tsunade watched the other Sannin with a slightly bewildered look on her face before she started laughing. Haha. I swear, Jiraiya, you have the worst sense of humor. She dismissed her former teammate's statement. Like I would even consider such a pathetic a stupid job. Only a deranged fool would take up such responsibilities that only lead you to a worthless death. If the blonde woman had any more comments, they were drowned out when the spiky-haired boy slammed his fist on the table. You cannot be serious, the Jinchuriki said as he turned towards the older man again. How can they even consider her to be the next Hokage? You might as well give the title to Orochimaru, Naruto exclaimed, his anger flaring out. She doesn't deserve it. She will only taint the title of Hokage, he added as he turned to glare at the healer. The female Sannin regarded the genin, her eyes meeting the same level of contempt present in his. Now listen here, you little brat, she started. You know nothing about the title of Hokage, she exclaimed as she slammed her fist as well. All you see is the glory and the praises, but you ignore the fact that all it does is break families up and condemns people to pathetic and lowly deaths, she stated. Naruto's glare intensified. It's not only that. The Sharingan user rejected the woman's declaration. Hokage is the person that everybody entrust and look up to. He is the only person that is there for you and makes you feel safe in this dark and horrible world, the Jinchuriki fervently stated. And I will be damned if I let you insult the title of Hokage, let alone become one, the legendary healer snorted. And who are you to stop me? She questioned. The genin's eyes narrowed as they were filled with determination. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I will become Hokage. The statement left 3/3 of the table surprised again. Regaining her composure, the senior medic let out an all-out laugh. Haha. A worthless little brat like you become Hokage? Tsunade mocked as she regarded the Jinchuriki with eyes that matched her tone. Returning the glare, the Sharingan user gritted his teeth before answering back. I would be a better Hokage that you could ever be, he firmly stated. Is that so? A smirk appeared in Tsunade's face as, next to her, Shizen sighed. It was Jiraiya's turn to sigh now. The whole situation had spun out of the Toad Sanin's control and he was now standing on the side of the street with his teammate's student as said teammate, and his own student were about to face off. The smirk still resided on the legendary healer's face. Okay, here is the deal, she started. You will have 3 tries. If you manage to lay a single finger on me, I will take back everything I said about the Hokages, the blonde woman announced. But when you fail, you will have to pay for all my gambling debts from now on. From her position, Shizen wished that she could warn the spiky-haired boy about what he was truly getting into. He would have to pull missions 24/7 to try to keep up with her teacher's gambling sprees. Determination shined brightly in Naruto's eyes as he nodded his head in agreement of the terms. He was going to make her take back all of her insults to the third and the title of Hokage, no matter what. After tightening his headband, the genin dashed forward while closing his fist. It was nothing but a blur for the Jinchuriki. One moment his eyes were focused on the female Sanin's face, and the next her face was replaced by her fist flying swiftly towards him. The impact was sickening, and the Sharingan user found himself been flung back. Twisting his body in midair, Naruto managed to land on his feet. Damn it! Before hesitation could seep in, the blonde genin charged forward once again and brought his hands together. Kagebushin no Jutsu! Immediately, 4 identical replicas of the spiky-haired boy appeared in the air in front of the medic Nin, falling towards her. You at least have some nice tricks, Tsunade commented before grazing the closest clone by the arm and flinging it violently against the other 4, reducing the quartet to clouds of smoke. The original Naruto's fist suddenly came flying through the smoke towards the healer's abdomen. In an instant, the Sannin flicked her leg up, catching the genin's chin and sending him skyward. Naruto fell hard on the ground several feet away. That makes two. Tsunade reminded the young man currently trying to get back to his feet. Shizen, make sure to get direction for the nearest gambling house, she commanded her student. Wiping the blood that was running down his mouth, the Jinchuriki gave the kunoichi his deadliest glare yet. I am not going to lose to you, the spiky-haired boy declared as he extended his right arm and grabbed his wrist with his left hand. Remembering his training from the last couple of days, Naruto started to gather chakra in the palm of his hand. Rasengan! The healer was surprised by the sight of the young genin dashing towards him with a perfectly spherical Rasengan at hand. Snapping out of her little trance, Tsunade brought her fist downward, driving it to the ground and causing a large boulder to rise up between her and the attacking boy. The moment the Rasengan connected with the boulder, the piece of rock exploded, causing dust to devour the entire street. Even through the clouds left by the explosion, Tsunade could still see the spiky-haired brat's figure approaching. The medic Nin prepared a strengthened fist to shut down the immature genin once and for all. The punch was never released as the Sannin's eyes caught sight of the Jinchurikis and was left frozen in shock by the presences of white comas around a white dot in both of the young man's eyes. Taking advantage of his opponent's astonishment, Naruto immediately swung his fist towards the blonde woman's face. Barely been able to recover from her surprise, the healer only had time to move her body slightly back, dodging the full force of the punch, but not enough to save her chin from being grazed by it. Jumping back, Tsunade kept her eyes focused on the spiky-haired boy's Sharingan. The unlucky gambler could still remember when Uchiha Kagome confessed her relationship with Minato, and her expecting motherhood to her. At that moment, Tsunade had told the young woman how her child would either be a garden-variety Uchiha or have no trace of the clan, because the upcoming child's two heritages were too dominant to come to a middle ground. Yet, here she was, looking at a miniature version of Minato donning a pair of blue and white Sharingan eyes. I won! Naruto stated as he panted where he stood. Jiraiya and Shizen had barely been able to catch the moment, when the younger blonde's knuckles scratched his former teammate. The female Sannin snorted. I guess you did, she admitted with just a hint of frustration in her voice. I take back what I said about the Hokage, but not about you ever becoming one. The legendary medic Nin's statement surprised the shinobi present. The only reason you won was because you caught me by surprise with the Yandame's jutsu and the Uchiha's Kekkei Genkai, she pointed out. How can you defend the leaf as Hokage if all you do is copy other? You are just depending on the strength of deceased Kages and an extinct clan, the healer declared. Naruto's glare became deadly once again at the healer's words. That's not true. I rely on my strength, the Sharingan user firmly stated. Then prove it, Tsunade simply stated as she continued to observe the young man in front of her. At the look of confusion on the genin's face, the blonde woman elaborated. Let's make another bet. Prove to me that you can acquire power of your own and I will acknowledge that you could become a Hokage, she offered. But if you are unable to do so after a week, you will not only have to quit your foolish ambition of becoming Hokage, but also quit being a ninja altogether. The Jinchuriki's eyes widened at the possible consequences of the proposition presented to him. Quit being a shinobi. The statement resounded in his mind. Eyeing the spiky-haired boy with a mix of mock and curiosity, the Sannin decided to nudge him. What happened with the confidence from a second ago? She questioned. Okay, what if, in case you do manage to win, not only will I acknowledge that you have potential to become a Hokage, but I will also give you this. Surprising the pair of shinobi spectators, Tsunade presented her necklace to the genin. My grandfather's, the Shodai Hokage, necklace. The medic Nin smiled at the look of surprise on the young man's face. So, what do you say? Shizen walked the already familiar path through the forest near the village they were currently staying at. Entering the clearing for the fourth time that week, the black-haired woman did not longer felt the urge to gasp in surprise at the sight that greeted her. It seemed that an explosion had gone off in the center of the clearing. There were burned trees, broken trunks, and craters all around the blonde genin lying on the ground. Naruto-kun, you better not be dead, the kunoichi stated as she walked towards the young man. After stirring a little on the ground, the Jinchuriki forced himself to sit up. Good morning, Shizen-san. The boy managed to get out. The healer smiled at the Sharingan user. It's already well into the afternoon, she informed and proceeded to watch the spiky-haired boy curse in response, and tried to get his already bruised and burned body off the ground. Why don't you eat something before you start for the day? the jounin offered as she revealed the bowls of ramen she had brought to the blonde. Shizen had already realized that the young shinobi would simply ignore all the fruits and vegetables that she would bring him. Giving in to his hunger, Naruto sat back down next to the medic Nin and thanked her before going to work on the bowl of ramen. As she watched the genin devour his food, Shizen did a quick scan of the teen's body, noting all the damage it had taken during such a short period of time. "Why are you so determined, Naruto-kun?" she asked. "Does the title of Hokage really mean this much to you?" Putting the empty bowl down, the Jinchuriki took a couple of seconds before answering. "Just a couple of months ago, I was infatuated with the idea of becoming the Hokage, so that the village would have no other choice but to acknowledge me," he started to explain. "But now I've become disillusioned with the leaf." Shizen could not help be reminded of her teacher by the Sharingan user's words. "Then why?" she asked again. Naruto gave the kunoichi a small smile. "Because I still love the title and the idea of Hokage," he answered, surprising the medic Nin. "And it is the only thing I have left, from the only one I had while I was growing up," he finished before standing up. The black-haired healer watched young Leaf Nin gave her his thanks before turning around and walking towards the edge of the clearing. It had been 5 days since the bet with Tsunade had been made and the genin had yet to check in on the hotel, having spent the last 4 days straight in the forest training until he passed out. Part of Shizen wanted the young man's work to pay off, but the other feared for the boy because, if he was willing to go this far for a bet, how would his life as a shinobi be like? The last 12 hours had completely sent Shizen's week to hell. It all started when she walked into Naruto's training spot on the evening of the 6th day to find the blonde lying unconscious and unresponsive in the middle of the clearing. The healer immediately put her medical abilities to use and, after doing everything she could at the time, brought the still lifeless genin back with her to the inn. After locating an unusually pensive Tsunade so that she might be able to further help the young man, her teacher proceeded to knock her out. Shizen was awakened by a surprisingly conscious Naruto the next morning, and the two immediately set off to find the Sanins. Finding Jiraiya was as easy as walking out the front door, but seeing the white-haired shinobi in the weakened state her teacher had left him in, the black-haired woman had no choice but to reveal the whole truth about the proposition Orochimaru had made to Tsunade. The three managed to locate the other two Sannin just in time to save the healer from Orochimaru's subordinate, Kabuto. The fight that followed was inevitable. Jiraiya moved to deal with his former best friend, while Shizen and Naruto were left to make sure the bespectacled young man would not get near Tsunade. As soon as the white-haired man gave the snake Sannin his attention, the blonde genin asked the kunoichi to leave Kabuto to him and to focus on defending her teacher. "Because if I cannot deal with him, how can I stand against the real monsters out there?" had been the explanation that the spiky-haired boy gave her. Now, while the two male Sannin had worked themselves to a stalemate, the medic Nin had to watch horrified as broken and bloody Naruto struggled to pull his body off the ground while a smirking Kabuto stood a couple of feet away. All around the two young men was proof of their battle. Scattered flames, both normal and black ones, a couple of craters from Razengans that missed their intended target, and the Sharingan user's blood marked their war zone. Yet, every time she tried to intervene, the blonde boy would insist on being left to handle the situation alone. "Wow, if this is my handiwork, I would hate to see what one of those real monsters would do." Kabuto's mocking words snapped Shizen out of her train of thought and pulled her attention back to the battle. Panting heavily, Naruto glared at the gray-haired shinobi. "Damn you!" the Jinchuriki managed to bark out. The blonde threw a kunai at his opponent. Before the blade could reach its target, the leaf genin set his Sharingan eyes on it, covering with black flames the explosive tag he had attached to it, and causing a sizable explosion. Knowing better, the spiky-haired boy immediately looked up where the bespectacled young man had jumped to avoid the explosion. Kabuto's body was currently falling towards the younger shinobi. The former Leaf Nin's hands were already glowing with chakra, prepared to strike. With a quick sequence of hand seals, the blonde raised a granite wall between him and his opponent, which the bespectacled shinobi proceeded to smash with his chakra scalpels. As soon as Kabuto's face was visible to the granite rubble, Naruto sent chakra towards his eyes. "Amaterasu!" the spiky-haired boy called out. Unfortunately, the moment that the medic Nin's body was covered by the black flames, it detonated, causing a powerful explosion and sending the genin flying back. "Naruto-kun, please stop this! You can't fight him!" Shizen screamed for the young blonde to come to his senses. Emerging from the ground, the spy observed the effects of his attack. At the absence of any sign that indicated that the Sharingan user would back down, the smirk in the former Leaf Genin's face widened. "Such tenacity at the face of certain death!" Kabuto started. You certainly take after the late Sandaime Hokage, Naruto-kun. The gray-haired man's smirk widened just as the spiky-haired boy's eyes did. Orochimaru tells me how the third was so adamantly refusing to die, even when his former student's sword pierced right through him. Shizen could have sworn that she heard something snap somewhere. The moment after the words left the young man's mouth, Naruto was standing just a few feet from him with a Rasengan in his hand. The blonde was so preoccupied with ramming the Rasengan into his opponent that he was barely able to notice when Kabuto grabbed his wrist and flung his body into the ground. Before Naruto could even think about kicking himself off the ground, the medic Nin gave him a jab with enough force to bury the genin deeper into ground. Naruto! Seeing the black-haired woman running towards him, the gray-haired young man jumped to a safe distance. Not caring about what the young Sharingan user wanted, Shizen immediately started to administrate medical aid. No, don't, were Naruto's first words as soon as he regained consciousness. The healer refused to acknowledge the young man's request. When the genin tried to stand up, the kunoichi immediately placed a hand on his chest to hold him down. You are done, Naruto-kun, she stated. The Jinchuriki moved a hand towards the jounins and grabbed hold of her wrist. Please, Shizen-san. Let me do this, the boy requested once more. Stop it! The shout caused both Naruto and Shizen to look back. Tsunade had shaken off some of her shock she had received from witnessing blood. Don't you care about your own life? She questioned. You'll accomplish nothing by getting yourself killed here. The younger blonde remained silent for several seconds before he simply removed Shizen's hand off his chest and stood up. I've made a promise, to both the person I love the most and the one I hate, the Sharingan user informed. I promised them that I would never back down and that I will continue to keep stronger my own way until I could protect those I care about. How could I face them if we're to give up now? The medic Sannin glared at the young man. What's a stupid promise compared to your own life? She asked in anger and frustration. Because that promise is the reason I have to keep on living, Naruto answered back. As someone who has so little, I will not allow this to be taken away from me, he stated as he stepped out of the small crater that his body had made. So long as I have my promise, I'll know I haven't lost myself in the darkness and hatred that plagues this world, the young man firmly stated. Both kunoichi sat in awe at the determination that radiated from the leaf genin. Setting his eyes on Kabuto, the Sharingan user brought his hands together. Tiger, dragon, rat, bird, ox, snake, dog, monkey, tiger. Everyone was able to feel the spike of chakra in the area. I am Uzumaki Naruto, son of Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Kagome, and shinobi of Konohagakure, the blonde declared as he extended his right arm and grabbed his ring with his left arm. And this is the power I have acquired for the sake of those that got me this far and to protect the people who are precious to me. Flames appeared in Naruto's right hand, immediately enveloping most of his arm. Hyoku! This time, Shizen was sure that she heard something snap. The flames danced gracefully, yet dangerously in the Jinchuriki hand as his gaze fell solely on the gray-haired medic. I'm not going to lose to you, Kabuto, the spiky-haired boy stated. If the former Leaf Shinobi was intimidated by his opponent's newest jutsu, he did not let it show. You truly are an interesting specimen, Naruto-kun, the young man commented. After I kill you, I will personally dissect your body, he added. The two ninjas immediately charged for one another, one's hands covering in chakra, while fire adorned the others. The confidence that he would never let the Katon Jutsu touch him was so much that the only thing that Kabuto could see were the vital points on Naruto's body where he was going to strike. It was already too late for the medic Nin when he realized that the trail of fire his opponent was leaving behind had taken the shape of a giant wing. Arg! With a thunderous roar, Naruto raised his hand and brought it down, causing the flame wing to rise and fall along, as though about to take flight, and rain down an inferno on a bewildered Kabuto. A large explosion followed suit, swallowing the two shinobi. The wait for the dust to settle was unbearable for Tsunade and Shizen. Finally, a form jumped out of the cloud and fell to the floor. The bespectacled man was almost unrecognizable, with most of his body covered with severe burns. There was no sign of Kabuto getting back on his feet anytime soon. When the dust finally cleared, Tsunade's eyes were able to discern the young leaf genin standing before a sizable crater. Naruto turned around and smirked at her. By the way, I won the bet, he announced before passing out. Naruto suddenly sat up with a jolt. The Sharingan user immediately started to look frantically at his surroundings. Hey, calm down. The blonde's head snapped towards the direction where the voice had come from. Jiraiya was sitting in a bed next to the boys with his writing material out. You've been out of commission for over 24 hours, he informed the genin. The revelation caused the young man's eye to widen. Then what about Orochimaru and Kabuto? He asked quickly. The legendary pervert laughed at the spiky-haired boy's urgency. Don't worry about that, we chased them away, the man answered before starting to laugh. Slowly, Naruto forced his body and reluctantly lowered back down to the bed. What now? The Jinchuriki asked. Jiraiya jogged down a couple of observations on his notebook before answering. Well, as soon as we are fit to travel, we'll be heading back to the village. The genin looked at the white-haired man from his bed. And what about Tsunade and Shizen? He asked. Oh, they're coming with us, was the short answer that the boy received. The look of confusion and surprise was hilarious for the Sannin, but nevertheless he decided to explain further. It seemed like your little show back there knocked something loose inside Tsunade, or perhaps it knocked something back to its rightful place, he commented before giving the young man a bright smile. She's going back to Konoha to become the Godame Hokage, the white-haired man announced. The genin remained silent for several seconds before his gaze left the writer and set on the room's ceiling. I'm still not convinced that she's Hokage material, Naruto commented, earning another bout of laughter from Jiraiya. I was beginning to fear you were not going to show up, Okina commented as on a rest stop along a mountain trail. You know I would show up as long as… Okina smiled. The graying shinobi reached into his inside pocket, taking out a sizable amount of money and placing it next to him on the bench. The old man waited until the money was taken from its place before turning around. It is good to see you again, Kakuzu-senpai. He greeted his fellow former waterfall shinobi. It was strange for a veteran and seasoned shinobi like Okina to gaze at his senior, an SE and essentially young ninja. The Akatsuki member simply gave a nod to return the greet before going down to business. You know that there is no much that I can tell you, the missing nin stated. I know, the bearded old man said. You cannot tell me how Akatsuki's hunt for the Gobi is going or how the Sanbai managed to disappear from the radar, Okina commented. After a minute of silence passed between the two missing nins, the youngest started again. You can talk to me about what you have yet to do, like the capture of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he offered. Kakuzu's green eyes narrowed. You are always interested in the fox's Jinchuriki, why is that? The bounty hunter asked. The graying man laughed again. Because, unlike you Kakuzu-senpai, I truly believe that this up-and-coming generation will surpass all of us, he commented. And I am willing to bet that Naruto-chan will be in the front lines of this new wave that is rising. The black-haired man remained silent at his Kohai's words. Anyways, Okina started again. Tell me about Naruto-chan, what does Akatsuki think of him? A look of confusing was barely detectable in the Akatsuki member's eyes. Nothing more than a target, he answered plainly. It was Okina's time to look confused. What? Akatsuki did not make any observation? Or maybe gauge his abilities as a shinobi? The younger man proposed, starting to become disappointed with the Red Cloud-wearing organization. Kakuzu's eyes narrowed. When would we do that? He asked. At the question, Okina's black eyes started to widen, and what came next confirmed his suspicions. Akatsuki has yet to make any move on the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Chapter 21, Predestined Hatred. Black and white, it was all that she could see. No, there was also the crimson color of the blood spread everywhere, framing and highlighting the bodies of black flames and white lightning. She called out for them, shouted at them stop as her tears ran down her cheeks. Unfortunately, all of the girls' pleas were drowned by the crackle of the fire and the rumble of the thunder. Their relentless charges continued regardless of the girls' desperate attempts. Little by little, the black and white was being replaced by red. Stop! Sakura cried as she fell to her knees, unable to watch the scene before her any longer. They were shouting now as well, but the pink-haired girl didn't know if it was because of pain or anger. Sasuke-kun! Naruto! The girl could feel the heat from the blonde's flames and hear the charging of the raven-haired boy's lightning as the two boys attacked each other with all the intention to kill their opponent. How it had come to this, she did not know, either was she aware of any way in which she could stop her teammates' actions. Sasuke-kun, Naruto, please stop! She begged them between sobs, but was still ignored. Suddenly, a deafening explosion went off somewhere in front of the kunoichi. Her heart stopped as her eyes widened in dread. She could feel the rough debris blowing past her form, rubbing against her body like sandpaper. Slowly, Sakura looked up. No! Through her tear-stained eyes the girl could see the smoking crater where her teammates had been, and no trace of black or white left. No! Sakura woke up with a start, and immediately looked at her surroundings. She was in one of the white, very white rooms of Konoha's hospital seating beside the bed. Oh, it's Sasuke-kun's room. The pink-haired girl realized as her gaze fell on the still unresponsive Uchiha laying just about a foot from her. The kunoichi had come to visit her teammate the day before, something which had become almost a routine during the last month, and after once again convincing the nurse on duty to let her stay past visiting hours, she had ended up falling asleep and dreaming about her teammates. Inside her chest, Sakura's heart speeded off once again at the memory of her dream, of her nightmare. The images of Sasuke and Naruto trying to kill each other had been terribly vivid in the girl's mind. She could still feel the explosions thundering in her ears, and she could have sworn that she had smelled her teammate's skin burning by fire and lightning. Sighing, the pink-haired girl tried to grip her heart through her chest. It had not been the first time she had a dream like that. Ever since the Forest of Death, when she witnessed how Sasuke and Naruto went as far as to use lethal force against each other, Sakura had been worried that things would violently escalate between the two boys once again. And ever since Naruto had left, the nightmares had returned. But Sasuke-kun said that he will not be seeking a fight with Naruto anytime soon. The girl reasoned as she remembered the raven-haired genin's words. Well, he said that they will fight someday, but not like in that nightmare. Her gaze regarded the sleeping Uchiha intensely. We will still be Team 7. Sasuke's voice echoed inside of her. We will still be friends. The kunoichi gripped her heart tighter. Please, she asked whoever was in charge of Team 7's fate. That's all I ask, Sakura pleaded as he closed her eyes tightly in an effort for her wish to be heard. Please tell me you haven't secluded yourself in this hospital during all the time I was gone. The pink-haired genin's head whipped around at the sound of the familiar voice. Right by the room's entrance, Naruto stood leaning against the door's threshold with a faint smirk on his face. Naruto! The blonde heard his teammate whisper, and his smirk grew slightly. Naruto! Still emotionally charged because of her dream, the pretty girl abruptly stood up and rushed towards the boy. The spiky-haired boy was caught off guard when Sakura threw herself at him. Sakura! The Sharingan user exclaimed. His cool demeanor from just a few moments ago had been completely shattered by the sheer surprise of his teammate's actions. The girl buried her face in the blonde's chest as her right fist started punching it lightly. You idiot! She shouted at him. The Jinchuriki gave a confused look at the top of the kunoichi's head. Is she crying? He wondered with concern. Sakura continued punching the stunned genin. How could you just leave me like that? She asked him. Why did you take so long to come back? She managed to yell at him between sobs. Naruto scratched his head in confusion. He did not know what to do because he wasn't too sure of the reason why she was mad at him. Is it because I left before being properly discharged from the hospital, or because I took a month to come back? The spiky-haired boy questioned in his mind as the pretty girl hitting his chest continued to call him an idiot. He wasn't even sure if she was actually angry. Ooh, so this is why you were so desperate to get back to the village? The blonde's eyes moved from the top of Sakura's head to the smirking woman that was now standing behind him. Tsunade watched with satisfaction as the blushing boy clumsily tried to get the pink-haired girl to compose herself. Despite the Sharingan user's bravado and aloof attitude, he clearly had no experience dealing with the fairer sex. Mustering enough courage, Naruto placed his hands on Sakura's shoulder and gently pushed her back. Sakura! He tried to get her attention. This is Tsunade, one of the 3 Sannin, and she's here to help Sasuke, the spiky-haired genin informed. At the revelation, a fierce blush invaded the pink-haired girl's face as she gazed at the older woman. Oh, it is an honor to meet you, Tsunade-sama. The girl gave a courteous bow. My name is Haruno Sakura. She civilly presented herself. The healer smiled at the girl. It's very nice to finally meet you, the Sannin informed. Naruto talked a lot about you, she added and stole a glance at the younger blonde to see his returning blush. Moving her eyes across the room, the medic's gaze fell on the unconscious Uchiha. Sakura watched quietly as the legendary kunoichi walked past her and positioned herself by Sasuke's bedside. The pink-haired genin held her breath as the blonde woman took her teammate's medical file, her trained eyes moving between it and the sleeping young man. Several minutes of silences passed between the occupants of the room until Tsunade finally put the file down and moved her chakra-infused hands over Sasuke's body. The woman placed one hand over the raven-haired boy's forehead, while the other hovered just barely above his chest. After a couple of minutes of intense concentration, the Sannin removed her hands from her patient and stepped back. The conscious members of Team 7 immediately gave anxious looks at the older kunoichi. He'll be fine, Tsunade informed, knowing that was what the two kids really wanted to know. I have alleviated most of the trauma he suffered. He should wake up within a day or so. Letting out a heavy sigh of relief, Sakura instantly thanked the Sannin before moving to her teammate's bedside. The medic Nin turned to the younger blonde. Well, I guess I'll go attend to your other friend. From what Jiraiya tells me, his situation is more complicated than this. She commented as she massaged one of her shoulder and moved to leave the room. I'll go with you, Naruto said as he pulled his body off the wall he had been leaning against during his teammate's treatment. I think you should stay, the soon-to-be-appointed Hokage stated. You know, to give your teammates support and such, she added as she left the boy behind, not before sending a knowing look between him and the pink-haired girl. The Jinchuriki sighed in defeat as his gaze moved to look at Sakura's back hunched over Sasuke. Suddenly, the blonde missed a light punching on his chest. Remembering the small bench just outside the room, the Sharingan user tried to make as little noise as possible while passing through the door's threshold on his way towards it. Gasp! Naruto-kun! At the sound of his name being said in surprise, the spiky-haired boy turned to look at the source. Searching sapphire eyes met widened lavender ones. Hinata's face was covered by a vicious blush under the blonde's gaze. Naruto-kun! You are back! She struggled to let out. A smile formed on the Sharingan user's face. Yeah, just this morning. The Hyuga smiled brightly in response. I'm glad, she confessed the girl. You took off all of the sudden and Lee-san told me that you left with Jiraiya-sama, but it was so long ago that I was starting to get worried. Suddenly, the blush in the pretty Kunoichi's face intensified as she realized what she had said. You were? Naruto asked as he tried to give the girl a reassuring smile to ease her blush. I'm sorry. I never meant to worry you. The young man's attempt to appease his former classmate failed as the Byakugan user became even more flustered. You don't have anything to apologize for, Naruto-kun, she assured. It's just that last time you were. And I did. And then you. The Hyuga decided to stay quiet and look at the floor. Smiling once again, Naruto sat on the bench by the wall and motioned Hinata to take the seat next to him. Shyly the girl took the offered space on the bench. So, what are you doing at the hospital, Hinata? The blonde asked. You're not hurt, are you? The girl immediately shook her head. No, it's nothing like that, the blue-haired genin informed. It is just that Niji-Nizan lost one of his shirts, and he has already looked everywhere in the Hyuga compound for it, so I told him that I would check to see if he left it here during his stay, she explained. A small laugh escaped the spiky-haired boy. You would think that he would be able to keep better track of things with his Byakugan, he commented, earning a giggle from the Hyuga. So, was it here? Hinata shook her head again. No, I am starting to think he left it at the training ground or something, the girl said as her eyes drifted to the room where her former classmate had come out from. How is Sasuke-kun doing? She asked. The spiky-haired boy let out a sigh. Well, I brought the Sannin Tsunade here to check him over. She did some medic stuff, and said that he should wake up soon, the blonde informed as he glanced at the girl next to him. The Jinchuriki was surprised to find her with a shocked expression on her face. What? Fighting back the surprise, Hinata looked at the boy with sheer admiration. So the rumors are true, someone really did brought Tsunade-sama back to the village to become the next Hokage, and it was you, Naruto-kun, she exclaimed. Naruto's astonishment increased. Rumors? Already? The genin rolled his eyes. News sure travels fast in this village, he commented. But yeah, she's here to become the Godame Hokage, if you can believe that. Hinata could not help but laugh a little at how her former classmates saw the appointment of who will be his boss and leader. Anyways, she's now off to examine Lee, he informed. And told me to stay here and wait for Sasuke to wake up, the blonde added, suddenly feeling exhausted from all of his travels during the last month. The blue-haired heiress regarded spiky-haired boy that was tremendously important to her. Do you mind if I wait here with you and Sakura-chan? She asked. Naruto managed a nod and a smile through his unexpected weariness. Hinata smiled back, moving slightly closer to the blonde, and enjoying how easy it had become to simply talk to him. Sasuke-kun! Waking up with a start, Naruto immediately looked at his surroundings expecting to find the Erosen and having one of his perverted dreams. Instead, the blonde's face became flushed at the sight of a pretty blue-haired girl sleeping with her head resting on his shoulder. Sasuke-kun! Hearing the sound that had woken him up again, the Jinchuriki's head whipped towards his teammate's room where Sakura was now standing over the raven-haired boy's bed. What's hap? Hinata started asking, but was unable to finish her question when she realized where her head was resting and how close she was to the spiky-haired boy. I think Sasuke is waking up, come on, the Sharingan user said as the two of them stood up and walked into the room. In his bed, the raven-haired boy had started stirring and grunting. As the three genin gather around, the raven-haired boy's eyes slowly started to open. Despite the deliberate pace in which the eyelids were coming apart, a month of darkness proved too much for him as they shut themselves again. Sasuke-kun, you're awake! Sakura exclaimed at the sight of the Uchiha's consciousness. Struggling to open his eyes again, the raven-haired boy tried to focus his returning eyesight on his teammates. Sakura, is that you? He asked and assumed that the slight up and down motion of the blurry pink figure in front of him meant that she was nodding. What happened? You're in the hospital. You've been out for a while, Naruto answered. Shifting his eyes towards the voice, Sasuke could now barely recognize his blonde teammates standing between Sakura and Hinata. Tired of the blurry images, the Uchiha decided to close his eyes again, rubbing them with his hand, and tried to open them once more. Before a noted improvement could have been made in his eyesight, the raven-haired boy suddenly found himself wrapped tightly in a pair of arms. Sasuke-kun! The pink-haired kunoichi cried. I was so worried! You wouldn't wake up! The girl said as she buried her head in his shoulder. A red tint spread through Sasuke's face. I'm sorry. He apologized, feeling guilty all of the sudden. I am glad that you are finally awake, Sasuke-kun, Hinata said sincerely, remaining by the spiky-haired boy's side. Sakura finally pulled away from the Uchiha. Are you alright now, Sasuke-kun? She asked. Do you need anything? Still taken back by the raw display of concern and affection he had been presented with, the Sharingan user searched for an answer that would ease his teammates' worry. Not really, I'm Finn. But at that moment, his stomach decided to take over and let out a loud growl that embarrassed the raven-haired boy. Naruto and Hinata snickered and giggled respectably in response, but the pink-haired girl gasped in surprise. Of course, you must be hungry after a whole month without eating anything, the kunoichi exclaimed. I'll go get you something to eat, she said, moving towards the door before her teammate could protest. I'll accompany you, Sakura-chan, the Hyuga offered before following Sakura out of the room, leaving the two Sharingan users behind. Both boys remained silent for several minutes. We took a pretty good beating, huh? The blonde finally commented, though his eyes moved away from his teammate. Sasuke nodded numbly. He had regained full recollection of the events that landed him in the hospital. I guess so. The silence returned between the two genin. You met my brother before? The raven-haired boy did not ask. Naruto took several seconds before responding to his teammate's statement. Yeah, when? Sasuke questioned, his eyes set on his bed sheath just like his teammates were set on the window. The blonde hesitated before answering. Months ago, he confessed before pausing for a couple of seconds. You could say that he was the first person that these eyes of mine ever saw, the Sharingan user informed. The raven-haired boy nodded in understanding. I see. He stopped as well. They were here for you, why? The genin inquired. After stealing a quick glance at his teammate, the spiky-haired boy's eyes focused more intensely at the window. I don't know. The Jinchuriki lied. Silence set on the room yet again. You said I'd been in this hospital for a month. Sasuke finally started again. When did you wake up? About a month ago, Naruto answered in a low voice. On the next day, he revealed. But he went a lot easier on me, The blonde tried to add, but his words soon started to sound hollow. That genjutsu he used on you. The Sharingan user tried again. Tsukuyomi. What did he show you in it? He asked. Sasuke let out a small scoff. Tsukuyomi. So that's its name, the raven-haired boy commented before going silent. Naruto. He suddenly started again, his voice taking a very serious tone. Do you hate me? Naruto was taken back by his teammate's unexpected question. Why the hell are you asking that? The genin questioned as his eyes finally set on the raven-haired boy. The severe look on the other Sharingan user's face told the blonde how essential an answer was. No, the Jinchuriki said firmly. I do not hate you. The raven-haired shinobi continued to observe his teammate for a few seconds before finally looking down. And what about you? The blonde asked, his eyes still not leaving the young man sitting on the bed. Do you hate me, Sasuke? The recovering Uchiha did not answer. The only sign of acknowledge that the question was heard was a faint grit of teeth and the boy's fist closing tightly on his bed sheath. "We're back," Sakura announced as she and Hinata walked into the room, both carrying several different products from the hospital's cafeteria. Sensing the heavy air in the room, her green eyes looked from one teammate to the other. "What happened? What's wrong?" she asked with dread evident in her tone. None of the boys answered. "So then I used the Oiroke no Jutsu just as Irika-sensei was about to realize that I was cheating in the test." Two boys burst out in laughter in the middle of the training ground. "He was mad and gave me 1 week of detention, but I laughed because at least it was less than the 4 weeks I would have gotten if I had been caught. So he gave me 2 more weeks for laughing," Konohamaru commented as he scratched the back of his head. Naruto's laughter was renewed. "Haha. I did the same thing," the blonde confessed. A grin formed in the younger boy's face. "Yeah, he mentioned that," he informed. "I think he's considering convincing the Hokage to label the Oiroke no Jutsu as a Kinjutsu," the Sarutobi added with a proud smile. The spiky-haired boy was finally able to get his laughter under control. "So, you're finally okay with Tsunade Bazin being the new Hokage?" Naruto asked. When they got back to Konoha, the blonde had been worried what the younger boy's reaction at seeing his grandfather's replacement was going to be. The Sharingan user's worries had been confirmed after his friend barricaded himself inside the Hokage's office. Konohamaru sighed as his gaze dropped slightly. "Well, I'm not jumping in joy for it," he admitted. "But I know that the village needs a leader, and she was one of Ji-san's students. So I guess I can accept her as Godame Hokage," the boy added. The blonde snorted. "Then you're more accepting than me," the genin commented. "I still don't see her as Hokage material," he added, making both him and the young boy burst into laughter once more. Naruto felt happy. After not having a chance to laugh like this in over a month, it was good to be a little carefree. The Jinchuriki could not remember when was the last time he simply sat down to talk with Konohamaru, and now he realized that he missed it. It had been a week since the blonde's return to the Hidden Leaf. Tsunade's induction as Hokage had already taken place, preparations for Lee's surgery were already underway, and after the delicate episode in Sasuke's hospital room, the head decided to give his teammates some space. But Naruto knew the raven-haired boy was due to be discharged any time soon, and they could not avoid each other forever. In the meantime, it was nice to relax sitting under the shade of a tree in the middle of the training ground conversing with Konohamaru, and pretend that the world was not full of problems. "Anyways," the younger boy suddenly exclaimed. "Come on, show me something cool," he requested. "You went to train with the Sannin for over a month. You must have learned some really awesome jutsus during that time." The Leaf Nin let out a small laugh. "Okay, I'll show you a really cool one," the blonde said. Extending his right arm and grabbing his wrist with his left hand, the Jinchuriki started to gather his chakra. Soon, a perfectly spherical mass of chakra stood hovering on the young man's palm. "This jutsu is called the Rasengan, created by the Yandame Hokage," Naruto announced. Konohamaru's eyes widened to an almost dangerous size. "That's so cool!" he exclaimed as he revered the technique. Allowing himself a smirk, the Sharingan user dissipated the Rasengan before it got out of control and blew up on Konohamaru's admiring face. The blonde did not want to explain to Asuma-sensei why his nephew had been disfigured. The younger spiky-haired boy let out a short whine of disappointment. "You're going to have to teach me that jutsu," Konohamaru demanded. "It's not fair that you hog all the cool jutsus for yourself," Naruto laughed in response. "Yeah, and then I'll become your teacher once I get promoted to Jounin," he sarcastically proclaimed. Despite frowning at his friend's mocking tone, the brown-haired boy decided to let it go. "Anyways, what are you working on now, Naruto and I?" he asked. The Sarutobi had found his friend already in the training ground. A sigh escaped the Jinchuriki. "Well, this," the Sharingan user said as he took a black scroll out of his pocket. Taking the piece of parchment, Konohamaru's eyes scanned through it multiple times. "Are you trying to learn the 2 jutsus for the Sharingan that are in this scroll?" the academy student asked. The blonde shook his head. "No, I already learned them," he informed. "But someone told me of a 3rd jutsu, so I'm trying to find what it is." The genin stretched, brought his hands together in the back of his head, and gazed at the leaves above them before closing his eyes. "But as you can see, the scroll says nothing about another technique besides those 2. I'm about ready to give up on it," the older spiky-haired boy added. "Why don't you ask the person who told you about it in the first place?" the brown-haired kid questioned, earning a short dry laugh from his friend. Putting aside the confusion caused by the other spiky-haired boy's response, Konohamaru studied the black scroll of a couple of minutes. Why don't you try reading it with your Sharingan? Naruto's eyes snapped open. Huh! The Sarutobi gave the older boy a curious look. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? He pointed out. This is a scroll about the Sharingan's secret techniques, right? So maybe you need to use a Sharingan to learn all of its secrets. The academy student offered. The Leaf Shinobi wanted to kick himself for never trying to do what seemed pretty obvious now. Worth a shot, the Sharingan user said as the Sora Sharingan appeared in his gaze. Even though he had never seen a normal Sharingan, Konohamaru could not help but be in awe at his friend's strange dojutsu as he gave the parchment back to him. Taking a deep breath, Naruto directed his Sharingan to the black scroll. Blood fell from his knuckles as he stared at the new hole on the wall. After several minutes of watching his fist's handiwork, the boy realized that his breathing had finally subsided. What the hell am I doing? He finally let out in a scream as he brought both hands up to his head, the left one leaving a red dye on the side of his forehead. Sasuke fell to his knees and his bloodied fist started to punch the floor of his house. What the hell? The raven-haired boy gritted his teeth as tears started to gather in his eyes. The images of Naruto's disappointed face and Sakura's fear-stricken one were burning in his mind. It had been a week since he had regained consciousness, and he was finally discharged from the hospital. But after the episode he caused on the first day, he had asked his pink-haired teammate not to come today. Now, the sadness he caused her simply added to his guilt. I hurt them, the Sharingan user whispered. Because I acted in such a stupid manner I ended up hurting them. Tears were already running freely down his face. All because, somewhere in the dark depths of the Uchiha's mind, a cruel voice started to mock him. It starts with mere resentment for being left behind, his brother's cold voice commented. Until it blooms into an all-overpowering hatred towards each and every one of those you hold dear. Itachi mocked him with every syllable. That is your destiny as an Uchiha, Sasuke screamed in anguish. Standing up, the raven-haired boy's hand found a desk nearby and flung it across the room, sending everything on top of it scattering throughout the floor. As he hyperventilated, the Genin's eyes caught sight of something that caused his guilt to skyrocket. Kneeling down, the Sharingan user picked up the newly broken portrait of Team 7. It will start with Naruto, he's already so much more powerful than you, Itachi had said on that day, apparently a month ago. Your jealousy towards him will soon consume you, and you will grow to despise the very sight of him and every breath he takes. Just like you hate me. His brother had taken the time to let out a sardonic laugh. So, unless you can become stronger, the Uchiha blood that runs through your vein will lead you to betray even the people you love. The raven-haired boy's tears fell on the images of his teammates. The eyes we share are nothing but a curse. The older Uchiha's voice echoed. Naruto and I, and even Kakashi, have already risen above it to the point we are no longer controlled by it. Sasuke's grip on the portrait tightened. But you are a weak and pathetic brat crying in a world full of monsters. In that strange and dark world created by the Tsukuyami Genjutsu, his brother had smirked. Either become strong or disappear from this world. In the Leaf Nin's hand, what was left of his team's portrait was shattered into hundreds of little pieces. The prodigy watched in horror as the picture fell to the floor as two separate pieces. Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi in one, and his image on the other, having been ripped out of Team 7 by his own hands. Sasuke's knees gave up and they found themselves on the floor. Itachi was right. His gaze was lost in the emptiness of his house as tears continued to run down freely. He's right. I'm too weak. The Uchiha's eyes drifted down and ended up on a piece of paper that had been on the now destroyed table. With a trembling and bloodied hand, the boy reached for the paper he acquired a month ago, a shinobi change of address request form for one Uzumaki Naruto. If I stay here, I'm going to end up hating Naruto. She knew it was not wise, even for a kunoichi, to wander around the park at night, but after the emotionally heavy week she had experienced, the fresh and cool night air was doing wonder to the girl's nerves. The memories from 1 week ago still gripped Sakura's heart with painful force. The moment she and Hinata had walked back into the room, the pink-haired girl immediately noticed the tension between her two teammates. Sasuke's eyes were set downcast on his bedsheath while Naruto glared out the window. When the kunoichi asked them what was wrong, the two boys tried to play it off as if there was no problem at all, but their disposition, the strain in their voices, and the blonde excusing himself soon after just to disappear for the rest of the week told her the truth of the situation. The following days, Sakura still visited the raven-haired boy, but the boy's awkward behavior and the loaded air in the room forced her visits to become shorter and shorter, until the day when Sasuke was finally going to be discharged. The Sharingan user asked her not to come, telling her that he just wanted some time alone to think. Sakura did not know what to do now. Should she try to talk to the raven-haired boy, even though she had been unsuccessful all throughout the week, or should she locate and confront Naruto, albeit she still had troubles even addressing her changed teammate? Sighing in concern, the kunoichi once again asked whoever was listening to please keep Team 7 together. A sound drew the girl's attention back to the path ahead of her. Slowly but surely, Sasuke's figure became visible just a couple of feet away from her. The raven-haired boy's eyes were downcast as he gradually moved forward, apparently lost in thought. "Sasuke-kun!" Sakura called out as she hurried up to meet him. A shocked look appeared on the Uchiha's face as he caught sight of his teammate. "Sakura, what are you doing here?" he asked. The girl gave the Sharingan user a curious look. "I could ask you the same thing, Sasuke-kun." She offered him a smile. "Didn't the doctor say that you should take it easy for the next couple of days?" Looking away from the pink-haired kunoichi, a pained expression appeared in raven-haired boy's face. Her teammate's odd behavior did not go unnoticed by the girl. Looking over his figure, Sakura saw the boy's backpack strapped to his shoulder, immediately raising some red flags in her head. "Sasuke-kun," she began. "Why do you have your—" The girl could not finish her question as she was caught off guard when the boy suddenly hugged her. "SAS. Sasuke-kun." The kunoichi yelped in surprise as her head. "Sakura," the slightly taller genin said. His voice and breath fell down onto the pink-haired girl's ear. "Thank you?" Trying to control her racing heart, Sakura found the rest of her body frozen in place. "Why? Sasuke-kun?" she managed to ask. The embrace around the girl's body became tighter. "For everything," the raven-haired genin responded. "For staying by my side even when I didn't deserve it, and never giving up on me." Slowly, Sakura awkwardly brought her hands to her teammate's back. "You don't have to thank me for that, Sasuke-kun. I will always—" The girl's sentence was cut short when she felt tears fall on her shoulder. She could not help but be reminded of trees burning in black flames during a rainy day. "I don't want to hurt you." Sasuke's near-desperate voice snapped the girl out of her thoughts. Sakura wanted to ease the boy's worries and tell him that he could never hurt her, but she was cut off before staring by his breaking voice. "I'm sorry." Chapter 22, Teammates. As all of you have been informed, Uchiha Sasuke left the village last night around midnight. There are no clues as to where he might be headed, and an official statement of the reasons behind his actions has yet to be made. Shikamaru said in an uncharacteristically serious tone as he regarded the group in front of him with equally solemn eyes. A snorting sound escaped Kiba. "Great! The one day that they closed the gates late and that idiot picks it to run away from home." The Inuzuka whined. "Just our luck," he added, receiving a bark of agreement from Akamaru, who lied on top of his head. Besides the brown-haired boy, a particularly pensive Niji stood. "Sasuke had just been released from the hospital, so I doubt that he could have gotten very far in only 10 hours with his condition," he pointed out. The Nara nodded at the older boy's words. "Yes, that is why the Godame Hokage, Tsunade-sama, has allowed the formation of this 4-man team in order to search for Sasuke and return him here." Shikamaru's eyes moved towards the spiky-haired blonde who had yet to say a word. "No matter what, we will bring Sasuke back," the usually languid shinobi firmly said, his voice filled with determination as he tried to assure his silent friend. Naruto's hands were already hurting due to the force he was using to tighten his fist. "Goddamn it, Sasuke!" The boy's mind raged. "What the hell were you thinking?" he thought as he gritted his teeth. Knowing how the Uchiha are, he probably wasn't thinking at all. Kyubi commented with a hint of amusement. A frown formed on the Jinchuriki's face at his tenant's words. "Not now, you damn fox!" the blonde said with as much disdain as he could manage. The anger in the Sharingan user's voice sent the bijou into a fit of laughter. "Haha! That's some intimidating temper you have there. It almost make you seem fit to be my host." It seemed as though blood was going to start running down Naruto's hands at any moment as his fist tightened. "I told you to shut it, Kyubi! I will deal with your bullshit some other day, but now—" The genin's train of thought suddenly stopped. As though a switch was turned, the patronizing tone completely disappeared from the fox's voice and was replaced by a more serious, yet understanding one. "All of this just because of her, huh?" the bijou commented. Naruto simply remained silent as his eyes drifted towards the ground. "You can try to ignore me all you want, But I know everything that is going on in your head and your heart, Kyubi stated with an almost solemn voice. You have been restless ever since you found out, and I know for a fact that the cause is not that your little teammate ran away, but because of how much his departure has hurt her. A sigh escaped the Jinchuriki as the weight of his tenant's words piled on top of him, but the young shinobi still refused to respond to any of the fox's comment. Yet, despite himself, Naruto's mind drifted back to a couple of hours prior. Flashback. The urgent knocks on the door echoed through his apartment once again, with no sign of letting out soon. Sluggishly, Naruto forced his body out of his bedroom in direction towards the door. The young shinobi cursed in a tired breath. After spending most of the previous day training until late at night, the blonde had planned on sleeping in this morning and worry about hitting the training field later in the day, or simply take the whole day off and hang out with Shikamaru and the others. The genin wasn't sure yet. The increase in the knocks snapped the Sharingan user out of his thoughts, causing him to sigh. The blonde swore under his breath that if once he opened the door he were to find Chuji wanting him as a partner for an eating competition again, he would look for all the potato chip bags that the Akimichi had thrown away in the past week and shove them down the boy's throat. Unless it was a ramen eating contest, in which case he would shove the potato chip bags from 2 weeks down his former classmate's throat for not telling him sooner. On the other side of the door, the knocks were getting frantic. It must be a meat-eating contest if he's this anxious, the Jinchuriki thought. Suddenly, a shocked voice called out from outside the blonde's apartment. Naruto! It took a second for the young man to recognize the voice of the person that was about to leave a dent on his door, and it took him less than a second to register the distraught tone that Sakura's call carried as it reached his ears, completely shaking the drowsiness off the spiky-haired boy. Rushing towards the door, the leaf Nin flung open the entrance of his apartment, startling the pink-haired girl and making her take a step back. Sakura, what's wrong? Naruto immediately asked her as his eyes scanned her features. It was evident to the young shinobi that she had been crying. It's Sasuke-kun. The kunoichi struggled to get out as the tears returned to her eyes. The Jinchuriki's eyes widened in alarm, not at the girl's words but at the fragile tone in which they were said. What happened? He asked, trying to be reassuring. Sakura tried to calm her nerves as her jade-colored eyes stared into her teammate's sapphire ones. Sasuke-kun. Last night he left the village! She finally exclaimed. What? Naruto shouted at the revelation. What do you mean he left? He questioned. The pink-haired girl seemed to recoil slightly at the blonde's outburst. The girl tripped over her own words. I saw him walking through the park last night. And when I asked him what he was doing there she choked. Acting on instinct, the spiky-haired boy placed his hands on Sakura's shoulders. It's all right. He tried to appease the distraught girl. Calm down and tell me what happened, the young man requested. The kunoichi took several deep breaths in an attempt to calm her nerves. I asked Sasuke-kun what he was doing walking through the park at such a late hour, especially after just being released from the hospital, but instead of answering my question he started to apologize for all the trouble he has caused, she informed. Naruto tilted his head to the side in confusion at his newly astray teammate's behavior. Then, he started saying that he didn't want to hurt either of us and... The blonde noticed that Sakura's lips started to quiver as she spoke. He said that he needed to leave the village before he did something terrible. Naruto could already see what was coming next, but even if he had all the time in the world, there was nothing he could do to help his friend. And then he apologized before he... Sakura crumbled at the moment, her body falling helplessly into her teammate's chest as tears ran freely down her cheeks. He knew, the Jinchuriki knew what had occurred without the girl telling him. All of these events that he was being informed on had happened last night, and if Sakura was just dealing with it meant that Sasuke had. Pulling her head off the young man's chest, the pink-haired kunoichi gazed at her teammate with tear-stained eyes. He knocked me out. Sasuke-kun knocked me unconscious so that I couldn't do anything to stop him from leaving, she exclaimed, her voice filled with desperation. Not amount of preparation would have prevented Naruto from being left dumbfounded and angry at the revelation. I woke up in a park bench this morning. And Sasuke-kun. The tears were causing the kunoichi's words to become incoherent. Naruto. I don't know what to do, she admitted as she looked pleadingly at the boy's sapphire eyes, searching for an answer to her cataclysmic problem. Something seemed to snap within the blonde, or perhaps something fell into place. A pair of shocked, Azure eyes hardened as the boy's grip on the pink-haired girl's shoulder strengthened. Please calm down, Sakura, Naruto said. His voice carried a peculiar mix of force and understanding that Sakura found oddly comforting. Finally managing to get her rampant tears under control, the kunoichi nodded at her teammate's request. Now, the Jinchuriki started again after seeing the girl in front of him regain some sort of control over her emotions. You said that all of this happened last night, so Sasuke couldn't have gotten very far, the Sharingan user said as a way to reassure his teammate. Kakashi-sensei is out on a mission, so we cannot go to him, so I will go straight to the Hokage and inform her of the situation, he added. Instead of the relief that Naruto thought his words would bring to his friend, Sakura's eyes widened in horror. No! She screamed. You can't tell the Hokage. If you do, Sasuke-kun will get branded as a missing nin, the kunoichi exclaimed on the verge of hysteria. Sakura! Calm down! The spiky-haired boy tried to get through to his teammate. The pink-haired girl simply shook her head. No! 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 She repeated as she closed her eyes. Naruto sighed and proceeded to take a deep breath. Sakura! The sudden outburst successfully stopped the girl's panic attack. Sakura, I want you to listen to me. Sapphire eyes bored into emerald orbs. No matter what happens, I will never let Sasuke become missing nin. Grip tightened while eyes narrowed. I promise you, Sakura, with all my heart and soul, that I will bring him back to you, the young man vowed. Astonished at her teammate's words, all that Sakura could do was nod like a small child. Letting go of a heavy breath, the blonde released the kunoichi's shoulder. Now I want you to come in and lie down so that you can calm your nerves while I go talk to the Hokage, okay? He said. The pink-haired girl nodded once more and stepped into the Sharingan user's apartment. The Jinchuriki watched the still distraught girl disappear into his room before he turned around and stepped out of his apartment. Closing the door gently, Naruto swore under his breath. His fists were dying to punch something, but the young man managed to refrain himself and instead started off towards the Hokage's office. And flashback. Realizing that Shikamaru had begun talking once more snapped Naruto out of his memories. So those are the official terms of our mission, the Nara informed as he regarded his newly appointed teammates. Any questions? Instantly, Kiba's hand shot into the air, gaining the attention from the others. Yeah. I want to know just how the hell they made you a Chunin, the Inuzuka inquired. The appointed leader of the makeshift squad sighed. I mean questions pertaining to our mission, he said with a hint of annoyance. The hooded boy brought his hands to the back of his head as a grin formed on his face. What's there to ask about? Kiba countered. The mission is simple to understand. We're going to find Sasuke and then drag his sorry ass right back to the village, he said with overflowing confidence, receiving a bark of support from Akamaru. The Inuzuka's words caused the word troublesome to be uttered by Shikamaru. Though it lacked any sign of annoyance, Niji shook his head in an attempt to fight off the tug he felt at the corner of his mouth, and Naruto looked up from the ground, the blonde's fist finally relaxing. After releasing a sigh, the Nara decided to take back command of the team meeting. Well, if everyone understands, the black-haired boy addressed the group. I want the three of you ready by the village entrance in 45 minutes. The Genins nodded. I will say this once more. Officially this is only a training exercise for the four of us, and so no one is to know about the true purpose of this mission, especially about Sasuke running away, Shikamaru stated, receiving one more sign of acknowledgement from his new teammates before the group broke apart. Sakura, Naruto called out as he opened the door to his apartment. Immediately, the kunoichi sitting on the blonde's dining table stood up and rushed to the Sharingan user's side. Naruto! What happened? What did the Hokage say? Sakura asked right away. The spiky-haired boy tried to put on the most comforting face he could muster. It's alright, Sakura. Tsunade Basin it's not going to brand Sasuke as a missing nin, Naruto assured the pink-haired girl. So what are we going to do? The Haruno asked anxiously. Sasuke-kun is still out there, getting farther and farther away from the village and if he crosses the frontier of Fire Country, the Jinchuriki placed his hands on his teammate's shoulders once more. Didn't I say that everything was fine? He questioned and waited for the girl's emerald eyes to set firmly on him. The Hokage has commissioned a search party for Sasuke, the young man announced. Sakura tilted her head to the side. A search party? Naruto nodded. Yes, Shikamaru, Kiba, Hyuga Niji, and me, we are setting out in half an hour, the blonde informed. A look of alarm took over the pink-haired Genin's face. But you are all Genins? She exclaimed. Isn't it dangerous to send all of you outside the walls of the village? Sighing, the Sharingan user tired to give his teammate a comforting smile. You know how the village is right now. Almost all of the Jounins and Chunins are out on mission or supervising the reconstruction efforts. The spiky-haired boy pointed out. Besides, we are not all Genins. Shikamaru was promoted to Chunin recently, if you can believe that. Naruto attempted to joke, but the humor was lost on his still worried teammate. Also, Tsunade Obasan said that as soon as any of our Jounin instructors returned, she will send them to help us. He added to calm the girl down. The Kenichi's still troubled eyes dropped to the apartment floor. I guess is okay then, she said, receiving a nod from the young man before he walked past her and started to gather his gear. Sakura's eyes drifted carefully around the small apartment. Despite having been there for a couple of hours, the girl had not taken the time to actually observe the place in which her teammate lived. Catching sight of a particular object, the kunoichi walked towards a small table where a small picture frame contained Naruto's copy of Team 7's photo stood. Looking over his shoulder, the blonde saw his teammate gently caress the small picture. Do you think that we will ever be able to return to this? Sakura suddenly asked. To how we were back then. Naruto remained quiet for a while. We have all changed a lot since that picture was taken. The spiky-haired boy went back to silence. Sakura picked the photo up and regarded her own smiling face, her teacher-masked grin, and her teammates' aggravated looks that were depicted on the picture before hugging the small frame. Naruto! I'm sorry, the pink-haired girl said softly, slowly turning around, the blonde's eyes fixed on his teammate. Why? He questioned. That day on the bridge. The young woman started as her eyes went back to the picture. I should have said something, done something. Had I known that would be the last time that. She choked. The spiky-haired boy's eyes narrowed. Last time for what? The Sharingan user asked with a hint of anger. Last time I made a fool of myself in front of everyone, he said with accusatory words. The kunoichi shook her head fervently. No, she answered gently. That was the last time I felt you emanate the warmth that until that day I had taken for granted, Sakura said as her eyes set on her teammate. And I'm sorry I did nothing to help you protect it, she said before giving the spiky-haired boy a small bow. Naruto managed to keep his sight on the pink-haired genin for a couple of seconds before turning around and returning to his gear. You have nothing to apologize for, he said with a defeated tone. The two members of Team 7 remained silent for the next couple of minutes until the blonde's hand gripped the doorknob. Naruto! Sakura called out. Please be careful. The apartment door opened slowly. You don't have to worry about me, the spiky-haired boy said. I told you that I will bring Sasuke back for you, and I will never back down from a promise, he added, catching his teammate off guard with an old familiar smile before setting off. Shikamaru cleared his throat. I am going to assign everyone's position and role, so pay attention because I do not want to repeat myself in 5 minutes when we leave the village. Kiba, the black-haired boy accusingly said, Whatever. The Inuzuka shrugged the Chunin's words off. After muttering, troublesome, the Nara continued. We will be moving in a line. First off are Kiba and Akamaru tracking Sasuke's scent. I will follow behind so that I will be a good position to give directions. More like barking out orders, Kiba said as he leaned towards Niji. The Hyuga simply nudged the hooded boy's attention back to their team leader. Naruto, I want you following behind me, surveying our surroundings with your Sharingan and ready to spring into action in my command, the Chunin said, receiving a nod of understanding from his former classmate. And Niji, you will be in the rear watching our backs with your Byakugan, the Hyuga acknowledged. Consider it done, Shikamaru nodded. One more thing before we set out. We will be acting on the mindset that Sasuke has been traveling non-stop for the past 12 hours. So do not expect any 5-minute breaks during this mission since we will not be able to follow him past the Fire Country borders. The seriousness in the Naro's eyes rivaled those of any veteran shinobi. Now I'm saying this not as a Chunin, not as your team leader, but as Naro Shikamaru. This is a mission that we cannot fail, the young man stated, probably because otherwise Ino will be riding his ass for the next couple of years. The Inuzuka told Niji under his breath. Though now that I think about it, that's not such a bad idea, he added, receiving a far stronger push from the Hyuga to snap his attention back. Aware of his teammate's comment, the Nara shook his head. No. It is because this is the first time we undertake a mission concerning someone we know, a comrade, a friend. He looked at each of his teammates. If we fail and lose Sasuke, we will spend the next years unable to let this mission or our failure go. The Chunin's words silenced the hooded boy. We will not have to worry about that. Niji interrupted. Because you said it yourself, this is something in which we cannot fail. The way I see it, that only leaves one possible outcome for this mission, he pointed out. Smirking at the Hyuga's words, Shikamaru looked at Naruto, giving his blonde friend a reassuring nod. Well, if that is settled, let's go, the black-haired shinobi said. The sooner we catch up to Sasuke, the sooner we can beat some sense into him, he commented as the four-leaf Nines crossed the village gate. Sasuke panted with his back against a tree. How long had it been since he left the village? Just a couple of hours? 12 hours? Or had it been days already since he committed the atrocity of knocking Sakura out before leaving Konohagakure? All that the Uchiha was sure of was that it had been about an hour since he found himself in this predicament. Come out, wherever you are! A joking voice called out through the foliage of the forest. Immediately another voice was heard, this one several degrees angrier. God damn it, Kidamaru, just find that bastard already! A female exclaimed. Let's get this over with, I want to go back already. No way! The first voice whined. I got all wound up thinking about breaking into Konoha once more and now we don't have to, so I have to find a way to spend this pent-up energy before going back. The man called Kidamaru proclaimed. A new voice joined the other two. You sound as if you are complaining about our good fortune, the third person said. This individual sounded a lot calmer than his companions, but his voice still carried an air of superiority with it. Days of planning and our target comes waltzing out of the protective walls of his village. Now we don't have to get into a pointless climatic battle in which Jirobo gets killed. The person commented. The female voice laughed. Well, if Kidamaru doesn't hurry out, Fatso here is going to die of starvation anyways, she said, earning a laugh from the first voice. Very funny, Tayuya. A deep fourth voice said sarcastically. Bite me, fat ass! The woman called Tayuya shouted, ignoring his female companion. The one they called Jirobo addressed someone else. This is enough, do you not think so, Sakan? He asked. A sigh was heard before the owner of the third voice answered. Yes, I guess it is, he said. Kidamaru, did you find him already? The hidden genin's eyes widened at those words and the amount of sweat running down his brow increased. The first voice that had spoken up laughed. Yeah. The idiot got too preoccupied listening to our banter that he forgot to keep moving, he exclaimed. Before Sasuke could react, the Sharingan user felt several spiders fall on top of his body. Shaking the small animals off, the raven-haired boy tried to move to a new hiding place, but his actions came into a halt when a rather large man appeared in front of him. The next second, the leaf nin's body was slammed against the trunk of a tree. Well, tag him and bag him, Kidamaru, the Uchiha heard as three people became visible among the trees. A pale, blue-haired man, a red-haired girl, and a tan man with 6 arms. The strangest of the group, the man with the 6 arms, spoke up. Damn, Jirobo, I hope the brat doesn't die before we get back. Sasuke recognized the voice as Kidamaru's. Not quite, the blue-haired man, Sakan, said as he watched their target get back on his feet. Lifting a pair of Sharingan eyes, Sasuke glared at the large man in front of him. What is it, you idiot? Jirobo asked angrily as a smirk appeared on the raven-haired genin's face. Feeling burning sensation in his upper body, the older shinobi only had time to look down and see an explosive tag attached to his chest before the piece of paper detonated. The explosion echoed through the forest, sending debris in every direction. Kidamaru whistled. Ooh, it seems we have a fighter here, he commented. Laughter erupted from the redhead. Did you see Fatty's face when he realized he had an explosive tag stuck on him? Priceless! Tayuya mocked, earning a smirk from Sakan. The fact that they took the reality that their teammate had just been blown to smithereens so lightly unnerved the Uchiha. The raven-haired boy's fears were realized when he heard movement from the newly formed crater. You bastard! Among all the dusk, Sasuke could see the large form of Jirobo standing up with no visible damage except for burned cloths. Suddenly, with a red glow, a strange triangular pattern spread through the large shinobi's body. At the sight of the strange markings, the Sharingan user immediately knew the true nature of his situation. Orochimaru, the young man whispered. Bingo! You got it! Kidamaru exclaimed. He's a sharp one. Orochimaru-sama sure knows how to pick them, he commented to his other teammates. Sakan took a step forward, his eyes settling on Sasuke. Well, if you know who sent us, then you must know the reason for why we are here, he commented, receiving a glare from the genin. So I will give you a choice. Either come willingly and fully accept the gift that Orochimaru-sama has bestowed upon you, or we will simply bit you up to an inch of your life and drag your broken body back with us. The blue-haired man offered. The Oto Nin received his answer as the Sharingan user brought out a kunai and took a defensive pose. Oh well. The apparent leader of the sound squad muttered. Kidamaru, take care of him. Sakan ordered. The tan man cracked 3 of his knuckles as a sign of acknowledgement, his eyes looking at Sasuke with a predatory delight. Wait! Jirobo called out the moment his teammate took a step towards the younger shinobi. This little prick ruined my shirt. I will be the one who teaches him a lesson, the large man announced. By then, his body was almost completely covered by the triangle pattern. Before Kidamaru could complain, the largest member of the sound team lunged towards the Uchiha. Jumping up onto a tree, Sasuke could see the sizable crater that his opponent's palm strike had left right where the genin had been standing. Suddenly, several of the boulders created by the strike shot upwards in the direction of the raven-haired boy. Hausenkan no Jutsu! The genin called out before releasing a barrage of small fireballs to intercept the rocks. The 2 volleys disappeared into a cloud of dust and smoke. Before the Uchiha could relax, Jirobo's form broke through the cloud, driving his shoulder into the genin's chest and sending him flying away. Sasuke was barely able to grab a hold of a tree branch to prevent himself from falling to the ground. As the Sharingan user tried to pull himself up to the branch, the older shinobi appeared standing over him, and proceeded to smack the boy down towards the ground. The young man had no time to think about the pain his body felt as the growing shadow over him warned him of the impending danger. Pushing his body to the side, the leaf Nin barely evaded Jirobo's feet as the older shinobi drove his own body into the ground. Taking the offensive before the large man could recover from his missed attack, Sasuke used one of the tree trunks as a platform and jumped towards his opponent, directing a spinning kick towards his head. Catching the boy's kick, Jirobo effortlessly flung the raven-haired genin away. The Uchiha was able to spin his body in midair, planting his feet to the ground in an attempt to bring his body to a halt. But he was unable to do so before his back violently hit a tree. The force of the impact took away the young man's sight for a couple of seconds, but it returned soon enough to see the incoming Oto shinobi before he was brutally tackled. Sasuke could feel the trunk of the tree give away behind him due to the sheer force of Jirobo's assault. Well, I think this is over. Kidamaru muttered disappointed as he watched the Sharingan user's body go through the tree and across the clearing like a rag doll. Jirobo really took the brat to the cleaners, he commented. Sakan was about to nod in response to his teammate's remark when an internal nudge brought his attention back to their target. Slowly and struggling with every move, Sasuke forced himself back onto his feet. Is the prospect of serving Orochimaru-sama so unappealing to you that you would rather die than submit to him? Jirobo asked his seemingly lifeless opponent as he prepared to continue his attack, but did not wait for any sort of answer. Unfortunately, that decision is not up to you, he exclaimed as he dashed towards the half-dead genin. In a quick and fluid moment, Sasuke jumped over the large sound Nin, successfully dodging the incoming attack, and gracefully landed behind the older shinobi. As soon as his lunge failed, Jirobo tried to turn around to face his opponent, but his moves were suddenly hindered. Are these wires? The large man questioned as he found himself wrapped around a long metal wire that led right towards the Uchiha. A smirk appeared on the young man's face as he turned around. It never occurred to you that all this time you were walking into my trap? Sasuke wondered through his teeth that clenched onto the metal wire. Why, you little? Jirobo grunted as they tried to rush towards the younger Nin. Skillfully, the Sharingan user's hand went through the series of necessary hand seals. Ryoka no Jutsu! He called out before a burst of flames in the shape of a dragon shot from the leaf genin's mouth, ran through the metal wire, and hit the man from sound with devastating force. The explosion then lighted the forest up. After what happened with the explosive tag, Sasuke did not take his eyes off the large cloud of smoke and dust. Damn you! The young shinobi heard through the debris as a form resembling Jirobo's stood up amongst all the wreckage. You bastard! You bastard! You bastard! The Uchiha's eyes widened as the large man in front of him started to change. The sound Nin's eyes darkened, his skin turned brownish red, and his hair grew longer. I am going to destroy you! Jirobo shouted. Tayuya laughed from her position. Ha! Fat ass is on the fritz now, she remarked. Smiling devilishly, Kidamaru addressed the leaf genin. Well, Sasuke-chan, you managed to get to the boss fight, don't choke on us now, the tan man taunted. Despite staring down a monstrous figure, the Uchiha's voice came out even and composed. You think that I'm afraid of you? he asked the entire group from Otogekure. I have already gazed upon the eyes of a true monster, the young man announced as an image of a strange, will-shaped Sharingan flowed into his mind. So none of you are able to scare me now, Jirobo snorted. Strong words for a brat who's backed against a corner. You have guts, boy, I will give you that, the man commented. But as long as you have that disgustingly defiant look on your face, you are useless to Orochimaru-sama, so I might as well rid you from this world. Doria Dango, the large enraged shinobi exclaimed as brought his hands to the ground and ripped a colossal boulder from the earth itself, raising it over the Uchiha. Sakan's eyes widened in alarm. You are going overboard, you idiot! He called out, but was ignored by his teammate. Still, the raven-haired boy remained unnerved at the sight of the gigantic lump of earth. I left my teammates because I was weak, the Uchiha muttered. I wanted to become stronger before this hatred that is dwelling inside of me consumed me. The young man's hand started on a set of already familiar hand seals. And if I am ever to be to return to my friends, I cannot lose to the likes of you, the Leaf Nin stated as lighting sparked in his palm and covered most of his arm. For my sake, for Team 7's sake, I will defeat you. A third coma appeared on each of Sasuke's Sharingan eyes. Chapter 23. Light breaking through the leaves. Itachi. While those two fight it out, I would like to take a moment to thank all you readers on behalf of Phoenix Sun for enduring this FIC until now. We know that is not the best writing, especially in the past when it was almost unbearable, that sometimes the story comes off a bit too cliché, and that the update rate is the stuff nightmare are made of. So once again, to all of you who have read all 22 chapters until now, thank you. Lee, that was so youthful. Kisame, please stop crying. Itachi, sigh. Here's PhD's chapter 23. Light breaking through the leaves. The raven-haired boy remained unnerved at the sight of the gigantic lump of earth. I left my teammates because I was weak, the Uchiha muttered. I wanted to become stronger before this hatred that is dwelling inside of me consumed me. The young man's hand started on a set of already familiar hand seals. And if I am ever to return to my friends, I cannot lose to the likes of you, the Leaf Nin stated as lighting sparked in his palm and covered most of his arm. For my sake, for Team 7's sake, I will defeat you. A third coma appeared on each of Sasuke's Sharingan eyes. Jirobo gritted his teeth at the Uchiha's glare. Those eyes, he muttered angrily. It is only because of those blasted eyes that Orochimaru-sama has invested so deeply in you. The sound shinobi roared and tightened his grip so much that a crack appeared on the giant boulder. I will squash your body and rip those damn eyes off, then I simply present that to Orochimaru-sama, he declared before heaving the colossal rock toward the Leaf Genin. The determination in the eyes of the raven-haired boy did not waver as the boulder came crashing down on him. Damn it, Jirobo! Sakan screamed. What are we going to do now? Orochimaru-sama is going to kill us! Don't you ever think? The blue-haired man angrily exclaimed. The largest of the sound team simply shrugged his leader's outburst off. Don't worry, Sakan, we just need to find his corpse and take the bastard's eyes out, then we... The transformed man's sentence was cut short as a chirping sound spread through the forest. What the hell is that? 4 pairs of Oto shinobi eyes directed their gazes to the giant boulder as a cracking noise joined the chirping. Jirobo's face became a mix of shock and anger. No! There is no way! He exclaimed. Suddenly, the chirping was replaced by a thunderous roar as a streak of lightning broke through the boulder and shot into the sky. The sound Nins looked up as the electricity started to mold into the shape of a dragon and proceed to dive toward the largest shinobi. Shaking his bewilderment off, Jirobo was barely able to jump out of the electric dragon's way and was left once again dumbfounded gazing at the cloud of destruction that followed the deafening blast that went off right where he had been standing. After the dust settled, the monstrous man jumped back in a bout of fear as he was met by the piercing glare of the lightning dragon. Let me say it one more time. Sasuke's voice was heard behind the electric behemoth. I will not lose to you, the boy affirmed as the dragon disappeared with a final roar, leaving the Uchiha and the sound Nin to glare at each other once more. Jirobo's transformed body started to shake as anger overtook him. You cocky bastard, he muttered. Next time I'm going to break every single limb in your body. The orange-haired monsters roared. Kidomaru scratched his head as he let out a sigh of relief. For a second there I thought we're done for, the black-haired man admitted. Good thing that Uchiha is made up of some tough stuff and had a couple of extra lives stashed away, he commented as he turned to look at his teammates. Gritting her teeth, Taiya glared at the 2 combatant Nins. That fat bastard! He could have gotten us killed by Orochimaru-sama by pulling off stunts like that. The kunoichi shouted. Sakan narrowed his eyes as he watched the mixture of frustration and anger that occupied Jirobo's face. Kidamaru! The sound leaders called out. Make sure that the Uchiha is not killed no matter what. Even if you have to take Jirobo out. The archer gazed at his blue-haired teammate before smirking and shaking his head. Acknowledged. He responded. Grart! Jirobo suddenly roared before lunging towards the leaf Nin. Die already, you little bastard! Sasuke stood his ground and watched as the Oto shinobi drew his fist back in mid-fly. At the last possible second, the Sharingan user simply moved his body to the side, successfully evading the incoming punch completely. Frowning in frustration, the orange-haired man swept his left leg in the attempt of driving a devastating kick into the Uchiha's side. The monstrous shinobi anger and annoyance grew when his young opponent not only was able to easily jump out of the kick's way, but was able to land one of his own, sending the larger man tumbling back. The raven-haired boy was amazed by his own prowess. Somehow, it seems like he has gotten slower. Or at least I can track his movements better, he reasoned. I can even predict what he's going to do next. Could it be that my Sharingan has matured? The genin realized as he looked around to find that even the leaves appeared to be falling in slow motion. You bastard! Don't look away from me! Jirobo raged before charging towards the smaller shinobi once again. Still, no matter how much the large man strained his cursed seal level 2 body, the young Sharingan user seemed to be able to dodge all of his attacks with ease, almost as if the raven-haired boy knew exactly what his opponent was going to do. Deciding to go in the offensive, Sasuke blocked one more kick from the Oto Nin and took the opening to drive his elbow into the transformed man's stomach, effectively stunning the larger shinobi and leaving his defenseless up for the leaf genin to uppercut him, and proceeded to kick his airborne body violently, and sent the orange-haired man flying away. Jirobo fell as the bark of a tree was nothing but paper when it effortlessly gave up as his back made contact with it, going through it with tremendous force. Damn it! The monstrous shinobi grunted as he pushed himself up using what remained of the tree's trunk as support. He hasn't gotten any faster. Yet none of my attacks are landing. It must be because of that damn Sharingan. The sound shinobi complained in frustration, making the mistake of taking his eyes off his opponent for a few seconds. Gokakyu no Jutsu! Sasuke called out before releasing a giant fireball towards the irritated Oto Nin. The transformed man failed to act quickly enough and was caught by the full blast of the Katan Jutsu, sending him flying back. The young Uchiha panted where he stood as the witnessed his handiwork. Have I become stronger? He whispered to himself just in time before the monstrous shinobi broke through the cloud of smoke created by his jutsu, lunging towards him. Blind rage was the only suitable term that could be used to describe Jirobo as he made a mad dash towards his target. The large man thrust his hands forward again and again, but to no avail as the leaf genin simple sidestepped, ducked, and jumped away from his grabs. Suddenly, the orange-head man felt something hindering his movement. Immediately he realized that his body was raped in metal wire once again. To add to the man's horror, the sound of 1,000 birds chirping filled his ears once again. Taking advantage of the moment, Sasuke dashed forward with a Chidori charging in his left hand. Without thinking twice, the Sound Nin quickly formed the necessary hand seals to raise a wall of rock between him and the raven-haired boy. The stone barrier easily crumbled at the power of the Chidori, but it was able to cut off the Sharingan's line of sight and slow the right Unjutsu enough for Jirobo to catch it with his hand. The Oto shinobi flinched as the lighting chakra seared the skin on his hand, but the pain soon subsided as the chakra Kyuin jutsu started to take effect. The man's mouth formed a smirk at the look of bewilderment in the leaf genin's face after his attack was successfully stopped. Closing his hand into a fist, the transformed man punched the raven-haired boy right in his face, sending him flying back. Not wasting any time, Sasuke jumped back to his feet the moment his back touched the dirt. Good, I thought this was getting a little too one-sided. The genin taunted his opponent, while his Sharingan sent deadly glares at the larger man's direction. But I promise you, you will not catch the next one, the Uchiha exclaimed as he swiftly produced another Chidori and dashed forward. Jirobo stood calmly unaffected by the younger shinobi's declaration, and instead, his hands were busy going through a set of hand seals. Doraduma! He called out. Instantly, the ground around the Sharingan user burst upwards, encasing the genin into a dome made up of rock and dirt. Heh! I don't need to catch it, the Sound Nin commented as he walked towards the newly formed stone prison. Standing before his creation, Jirobo was about to place both of his palms on the dome to use the chakra Kyuin technique, when an already familiar sound was heard. By the sound of chirping birds, the Chidori broke through the rock as the dome started to crumble. "You should keep in mind that earth techniques are weak against right unjutsus," Sasuke commented as he directed his electrically charged hand towards the larger nin. Suddenly, just as the lightning jutsu was only a hair away from the target, it stopped. Sasuke's scream filled the forest as an unbearable pain shot through his body, originating from the left side of his neck. The Odo shinobi watched with smug satisfaction as the genin crumbled in front of him. "Ha! I was wondering when it would kick in," Jirobo casually said. Sharingan eyes filled with anger, surprise, and increasing fear looked up at the monstrous man before gazing at the left side of the leaf nin's body. Shock and dread grew inside of Sasuke at the sight of a dark flame pattern already covering his left shoulder. "It seems that you have been letting Orochimaru-sama's gift go to waste," the sound nin pointed out. "And for not embracing what was so graciously offered to you, you are going to lose," he proclaimed before kicking the downed boy in the stomach and sending him flying away in an arc. The Uchiha landed back on the dirt with a thud that barely registered, just like the kick itself had been nothing but an afterthought, as both cases failed in comparison to the pain that he felt emanate from his blasted curse seal. Parts of Sasuke's body were already starting to go numb due to the pain. The young man was faintly aware of the larger shinobi approaching as the pain continued to overwhelm him and his mind slowly wandered back to the village. "Naruto! Sakura! I'm sorry," he thought. "I'm so weak. I can't even face you again." The sound of breaking twigs announced that the transformed man was now right in front of him. "Sakura! Sakura sighed as her hands played with a pair of chopsticks, and her eyes gazed vacantly at the wall of Naruto's apartment. She was not sure how long she had been in that room. Whether it had been 4 hours or 5, or if it was a day or 2, it seemed that time had started to blend together for her, and become distorted to her perception. A cold, half-eaten cup of instant ramen stood just a short distance away from her head that rested on the table. In the back of the pink-haired girl's mind, she wondered how angry Naruto might be when he found out she had taken some of his precious ramen without permission. That is, if Blonde ever came back. To prevent her hands from shaking, the kunoichi gripped the chopsticks tighter. What had started as a passing thought had become a real and terrible fear. What if Naruto decided to leave her too? She could not help but dread silently as she stayed behind on a mission that would decide Team 7's fate. The worst part was that passing thought turned to terror led to an even greater one. What if Naruto and Sasuke fought and killed each other? Sasuke! The girl had tried her best not to think of that name, but now that her mind had found its way back to the raven-haired boy, the kunoichi could feel new tears forming in her emerald eyes. Images from her teammates' goodbye kept replaying in her head. Maybe, if she had not allowed herself to be taken in by the moment, she would have not been so easily knocked out, and she could have prevented all of this. Maybe, if she had not been so infatuated with the Uchiha, she could have seen the terrible turmoil inside the raven-haired boy and done something to prevent all of this. Maybe, if she would have acted on her fears for Team 7's future, she could have gotten Sasuke, Naruto, and Kakashi-sensei to sit down and talk things out, and none of this would have happened. Tears were already falling freely on the table. Suddenly, a knock on the door snapped the kunoichi out of her thoughts. Standing up, Sakura rushed towards the door and quickly opened. She was slightly disappointed to find Tenten on the other side of the threshold. "Sakura-chan! I've been looking everywhere for you. Ino-chan told me you might be here." The older girl greeted warmly. The pink-haired girl tried her best to smile at her fellow genin. "Oh. Hi, Tenten," she answered back. "What did you need me for?" Tenten scratched the side of her cheek awkwardly. "Well, Lee made me promise that I would find you and let you know that he is about to undergo surgery," she revealed. Sakura's face brightened slightly. Yes, I stop by from time to check on him in the hospital while visiting." She stopped for a moment. "I asked Lee to keep me informed on his condition," the girl said as she tried to give the older kunoichi a reassuring smile. "Oh, thank God." Tenten let out a sigh of relief. "For a while there I thought it was one of Lee's fantas." The brown-haired girl cut herself off, shook her head and proceeded to take a moment to compose herself before continuing. "Anyways, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing in Naruto's home all by yourself? I don't hear him anywhere," she questioned. The younger girl bit her bottom lip for a second. He's out. On a mission." At those words, Tenten crossed her arms. "Him too, the weapons expert commented, earning a questioning look from the other kunoichi. "Well, I met with Hinata-chan before coming here, and she told me that both Niji and Kiba are out too," she explained. It seems that they are all out on a boys-only mission, the brown-haired girl added with an indignant look. Guilt crept up on Sakura as her gaze found its way to the apartment's floor. Though Hinata-chan did say that Niji had a very serious look on his face, more serious than usual, and that Kiba was acting uncharacteristically solemn. The older genin continued, and Naruto has been pretty much all seriousness since I've known him. So I guess this must be a pretty important missy. Tenten could not finish her statement, as she caught sight of the pink-haired girl. The reality of how much Team 7's situation was affecting others had started to dawn on Sakura, and if something happened to any of their friends and comrades that were currently on the other side of the village's wall, the pink-haired kunoichi would not be able to forgive herself. Tenten had gathered enough to infer the gist of the situation. Walking towards her shaking comrade, she placed one of her hands over the younger girl's shoulder. But then again, they are our boys. Whatever it is that they are doing, they can take care of themselves and will soon come back to us. She offered a reassuring smile. We just need to have faith in them, she added. Sakura looked into Tenten's eyes before closing her own and silently praying. I do have faith in you, Naruto. Sasuke-kun. Jirobo's foot hovered barely 2 feet above Sasuke's head, its heel ready to crush the genin's head. While aware of his dire predicament, the Uchiha had no control of his body. His limbs felt like lead, and his chest had trouble breathing. Am I going to lose here? He wondered through the pain as he felt the cursed seal's pattern sear even more of his skin. I won't even have a chance to keep the promise. Amongst all the turmoil, a certain memory found its way into the raven-haired boy's mind. It felt almost like a lifetime ago, when the young man carried his teammate's unconscious body and placed her carefully on a park bench. Somewhere in the present, Jirobo's leg twitched right when it was about to come down, but all that Sasuke could think about was the words he had spoken as he wiped away the single tear that had escaped Sakura's eye. I promise. Someday I will come back. The sound Nin's heel was a hair away from crushing the genin's head. To you. Jirobo's heel came down with thunderous force, but all it caused was a new crater in the ground as the leaf shinobi managed to push his body away in the last second. What? The large man exclaimed as he felt the ground crack beneath the sole of his foot. Several feet away, Sasuke stood glaring at his opponent with a defiant Sharingan blazing in his eyes. Every member of the sound team watched dumbstruck as the young genin from Konoha willed the flame-like pattern that had spread through most of the left side of his body to recede back to his neck. Impossible, was all that Kadamura managed to say. Anger grew inside of Jirobo. Did you see that, Sakan? He called out. He completely rejected the cursed seal. He is useless to Orochimaru-sama already, the monstrous shinobi added as he got into a fighting stance. How many times do I have to repeat myself? Sasuke said in a low yet clear voice. I will not lose to you. I will defeat you, the Sharingan user proclaimed as he reached into his already battered bag and pulled out a Fuma shuriken. Now behold my power, the young man shouted as he held the shuriken open and the weapon started to glow. The power of the Uchiha. No! The power of Team 7! He called out before sending the metal instrument flying towards the enemy. The Oto Nin stood strong, completely unfazed by the incoming weapon. This is nothing, he stated as he sidestepped the sharpened blades and let the shuriken fly past him. Immediately, the large man felt something was wrong. Despite Jirobo's certainty of having fully evaded the Fuma shuriken, a cut had appeared on the side of his body. But, as the orange-haired shinobi soon found out, that was not the real problem. What? What is going on? The sound Nin grunted as he felt jolts of electricity running up and down his spine, paralyzing his transformed body. This is lightning chakra. The sound of branches being torn apart alerted Jirobo that the shuriken was still in mid-flight. Managing to turn his head around, the monstrous man could see as the metal instrument arced upwards, past the trees, until it stood right on above of him. He could now see a small wire tied to the weapon that led all the way down to its owner. It's not done yet, the Uchiha said in a menacing voice as his hands formed seals and the Fuma shuriken dived downward. Ryokan no Jutsu, Sasuke called out before sending a streak of flames upwards along the metal wire. To the sound Shinba's horror, the moment the fire reached the shuriken, the 4 blades of the weapons came apart, and the flames that covered each of them took the shape of dragons. In a monstrous explosion, the 4 dragons rained down on the transformed man, consuming him in a massive fireball and drowning out his screams. Sasuke was left panting before the cloud of smoke and dust that had risen. Most of the Sharingan user's body still ached in pain, so the young man knew that he needed to get a hold of himself as soon as possible, especially since he knew that there were 3 other sound Nins about to attack him at any given moment. Suddenly, and with a mad roar, a crazed Jirobo burst out of the dust and lunged towards the genin. The Uchiha had enough time to see his opponent's gravely wounded body, with an arm missing and one of the shuriken's blade impaled on the upper part of one of his legs, before the sound nin's remaining hand closed around the raven-haired boy's neck and slammed his back against a tree. "I'm going to kill you! I'm going to kill you!" All reason seemed to have abandoned the transformed man. "I'm going to kill you!" Attempts to lessen the hold on his neck were futile for Konoha Shinobi as his opponent's strength seemed to increase the further he drifted into madness. A wicked and distorted smile formed in Jirobo's face at the expression of helplessness that his target showed. "I'm going to kill you!" he repeated, and his grip strengthened. "Damn it!" Sakan cursed at the situation. "Kidamaru!" he called out and turned to look at his teammate. The tan man already had the arrow in his bow trained on his transformed Oto-nin. "So long, Jirobo." "Game over," the black-haired man said as he pulled the arrow back along the string. Unaware of his teammate's actions, Jirobo glared into the Uchiha's eyes, gleefully savoring every second that transpired as more and more breaths escaped the young man, driving the monstrous man to strengthen his hold on the genin's neck even more, until, snap, the boy's handsome body went limp in Jirobo's hold. His hands dropped lifelessly to his side as his head fell back. A grin invaded the sound shinobi's face. "I did it!" He let the genin's body fall carelessly to the ground and turned to look at his comrades. "Guys, I did it! Killed the bastard!" The transformed man cheered gleefully. Tayuya glared at his teammate. "You dumbass!" the kunoichi screamed. "It's a damn genjutsu! Turn around!" she shouted. Jirobo gave the redhead a confused look before obeying. The last thing that the sound nin saw was a pair of jaws made up of electricity closing down on him. The Raikiri Ryu completely consumed its victim and raced through the forest, tearing up trees and boulder like they nothing but paper, finally slamming what was left of the transformed body from Oto into the side of a small hill. A chair flew past Okina. A clattering sound later informed the seasoned shinobi that the object had shattered on the wall all the way at the end of the hall. "Damn that bastard!" A roar was heard from the darkest part of the room. Okina sighed. "Calm down," the bearded man said half-heartedly. "Nothing can be done about it now." A growl from the other person in the room was the first response he got. "First that bullshit with Akatsuki and now this," the angry voice complained. The graying shinobi nodded, sure that his younger comrade could see it despite all the darkness. "Yes, but you have to understand, with both of them outside the village, we could not waste this opportunity." Okina tried his best to explain. "And now that Orochimaru made his move, we have to act before Akatsuki does so as well," the former waterfall shinobi pointed out. It sounded as if a fist went up against a wall, and the wall lost. "I know already!" the second party roared. "But god damn it, I should have been the one assigned to this mission," another sigh escaped aged shinobi. "Like I said, you cannot do anything about it now," the bearded man repeated himself. "The mission was assigned to them, and they already set off to carry it out." Okina knew that his reminder would do nothing to appease his comrade. "But you do not have to worry. I am sure that if it is them, this mission will be successful. After all, they are." The sound of more pieces of the wall crumbling down cut the former Taki-nin off. "Don't even start with that again, old man." The voice growled once more. All that could be heard in the large dark room were the sounds of footsteps walking away. For a moment, Okina could have swore that he saw the glint of a sword been sheathed in the darkness, and it left the seasoned shinobi wondering that maybe his young teammate was angrier than he had predicted. Sasuke stood panting with his left arm extended and his Sharingan fading from his eyes, his body suffering the backlash of unleashing 2 Raikiri Ryu, on top of everything else that had happened on that day. Pushing his body to the limit, the Uchiha forced himself to start moving forward. Well, Fatso did bite the dust after all," Kidamaru commented as he and his teammates landed in front of the exhausted genin. "Congratulations, Sasuke-chan, now you get to level up," the tan man teased as 2 of his hands formed a seal. "Kumo Shibari!" he called out. A pair of onyx eyes watched helplessly as a large spider web burst out the strange man's mouth, extending and threatening to cover him. Sasuke tried to move his body, but all they managed to accomplish was to fall down to his knees as the white fabric moved closer and closer. "Houseken no Jutsu!" Suddenly, several small fireballs flew past the tired Uchiha, intercepting the spider web and reducing it to ash. Immediately, 4 figures jumped between the raven-haired boy and the remainders of the sound team. Naruto! Sasuke whispered. Naruto, Shikamaru, Niji, and Kiba, the latter with Akamaru lying on top of his head, stood imposingly in front of the wayward leaf Nin. You sure are troublesome, Sasuke, the Nara commented, looking back at his former classmate and smirking. Yeah! Kiba exclaimed energetically, though there were some signs of fatigue in his voice. And Shikamaru is a slave driver. We've been running non-stop for Kami knows how long to catch up with your sorry ass. The Inuzuka complained, earning a smack on the backside of his head by Niji for his troubles. The blonde in the group remained quiet for a couple of seconds more before breaking his silence. You left Sakura crying, was the only thing that the spiky-haired boy said, all without looking back at his teammate. Instead his eyes remained trained on the Otonins. Tayuya gritted her teeth. Great, now we have to take care of these brats. This is all that dead fatso's fault, she angrily cursed. A grin graced Kadamaru's face. I'm not complaining. This just makes the game more interesting for me, the man gleefully proclaimed. Do not forget our mission. Sakan intervened, his sight moving past the newcomers and settling on his target. We have to take the Uchiha to Orochimaru-sama. Kiba took a step forward right away. Like hell you are, the brown-haired boy said. Sasuke might be an idiot, an asshole, and a jerk, but he's still one of our comrades and we will never let you have him. The hooded boy's declaration was accentuated by a bark from Akamaru at the end. Also, Sasuke leaving the village all of the sudden pissed off a lot of people, Shikamaru commented. So we'll be dragging him back with us and let Ino and the other village girls inflict their punishment on him, the Nara casually stated. So if you want him, Niji finally spoke, you will have to go through us, the Byakugan user firmly declared. A light snicker escaped Sakan's lips. We do not need to. The blue-haired man nonchalantly turned his head to look at his female teammate. Tayuya! Bind them, he commanded. Smirking, the kunoichi brought her flute to her mouth. Matiki, Muganansa! She called out before starting to emit sound from her instrument. Kiba and Akamaru were the first ones to feel the effects of the attack. Jark! My body! The Inuzuka screamed as the small white dog yelped in pain. Before the others could react to their friend's predicament, the remaining leaf Nins found themselves with their limbs bound by an unseen force as pain ran rampant through their bodies. Out of sheer force of will, Naruto managed to bring his hands up to his ears in an unsuccessful attempt to drown out the sound. Haha, that's useless, you retard! Somehow, the blonde could hear the redhead's voice through the melody. My genjutsu travels in vibrations directly through the skin. Blocking your ears will do you no go, you poor bastard. She gleefully and mockingly exclaimed, a wonderful melody. Sakan praised as he smirked wickedly at the struggling Konoha shinobi. Now, Kidamaru, if you please, the tan man sighed. I don't like this kind of tactics. It feels like a cheat code, but I guess a guy has to do what a guy has to do, he said before forming hand seals and taking air in. Kumo Shibari! Kidamaru shot another spider web towards the Uchiha. Before the net could approach its target, it was caught by sudden powerful gust of wind that tore it apart. I told you that you would have to go through us to get to Sasuke, Niji said with a low but firm voice as he stood up, apparently no longer affected by the sound-based jutsu. There was a small hiccup on the melody. What? How is it not affecting him? Tayuya's voice shouted through the music. The kunoichi increased the tempo of her genjutsu and concentrated it on the insolent genin. Still, the Hyuga remained standing, staring down the three Otonins and seemingly unhindered by the genjutsu. Your sound, Niji said as his body started to glow. I can't hear it.